It's Friday morning. I have left my house and I'm heading for the office. I worked hard and I found myself lost in the day. A reality was setting in and I wonder what happened to my dreams. I kicked my feet up to the desk and I tilted the chair back. I held my fingers behind my head. I thought about it for a while. I could have been so much more. What happened? Did I settle for less, or is this the limits of who I am? As a kid, I saw myself as being great. I can see who I am today. I always thought I'd make a difference in the world, that all would know my name. For me, this workday spun to its end, and I watched as the clock wound down to quitting time. Once I left work, I found myself driving in my car. I gazed up to the sky through the windshield. The blue deepened my thoughts. What set them free was a high soaring bird. I lost myself in the bird's freedom. I even envied his limitless boundaries, for the sky was his. As I arrived at my mountain house, I took a few moments to enjoy the scenery. I walked over to the pond towards the old weeping willow, as I always did when I first arrived at my mountain house. I sat in this old favorite swing I hung years ago for my wife. I'll always miss her. She died in a terrible car wreck years ago. I thought of old memories and a smile warmed my heart. I rocked in the swing while I glanced across the rolling lawn to the tree's edge. Everything so peaceful here. I looked down into the water's surface and I stopped myself from rocking. In its reflection, staring at me from across the pond, is a deer. Not breathing, I stare at the deer's reflection in the water. I am lost at how obsessive his look is at me. It's like he's stripping my soul naked and he knows he's doing it. It's the biggest buck I've ever seen, not just in rack, but body too. The stare between the buck and I deepened and is only broken by the piercing sound of a screech coming from above. I looked from the water to the sky and I saw nothing. I gazed to where the deer stood and it is gone. I looked down into the water and I saw the deer's reflection as it turned walking away. When I looked back up from the water to the deer, there I only saw trees. I stood from the swing and I looked back into the water again. The deer is at the crest of the hill and he is looking back at me. I slowly looked up from the water, and there again I saw nothing. Once inside of the cabin, I sat in front of the empty fireplace. I thought about that deer for a while. I never truly looked at him. I only saw him as a reflection in the water. I walked out the front door, leaned on the rail, and I looked over the trees to the horizon. As dusk grabbed this moment, the sun fired up the sky, saying goodbye to this day forever. It was later in the night and the cabin had its own glow from a crackling fire. Lost in it, I found myself addicted to the flames. That's when I heard a step on the front porch. I turned my sight from the fire to the mantel. Hearing it again, I rose. As the steps slowly walked around the porch, I leaned behind the sofa. I looked through the open window waiting to see who's there. As his nose passed the frame, his massive antlers turned into view, and the deer looked right at me. I swallowed hard. First I started to duck totally behind the sofa to hide, but instead I stood. Forever is this time that I looked into his eyes. As he let out a breath, it stained the air thick with the mist. When it cleared, he was gone. I sat on the sofa after I closed all the windows and locked the doors. That deer freaked me out. After half the night ticked away, I finally fell asleep. The dreams this night are like no others. I am running through the woods, hearts pounding. There's a feeling so real the fear is bursting. I know I am being hunted. As a deer that is being hunted by a pack of wolves, I ran like death was behind me. I leaped over still water, and when I looked down in the surface, time froze. That's where I saw his reflection. I am that deer. Suddenly I found I was back in the cabin, my heart's pounding a rhythm of fear into my head. I tried to shake that fear I had. However, that was the only thing I felt. My only thought was, it had to be a dream. That deer, all of it. I walked to the window. I looked outside where the sun is starting to climb. From the kitchen, I heard a screech. It sounded like the same screech I heard when I saw the deer for the first time, while I sat in the swing by the pond. I walked outside and I looked up. I noticed what looked like a bald eagle soaring at a distance. I can't make it out clearly. It's too small in the sky. I watched as the bird landed in a tree at the edge of my sight's ability to see him. He turned his head side to side, and it seemed as if he was looking in my direction. That is when the bird arched up, squatted down, and leaped back into the air. As his wings spread wide, he started his glide from the tree aimed right at me. I stood surprised as the great beast landed on the railing before me. I stared at the eagle with his eyes of gold. He held me in their sight. Unable to move, overwhelmed by the seconds that followed, I became the eagle. Not in body, but in mind, and as he flew up into the sky, I also flew, not from the ground, but in my imagination, seeing as the eagle. Soaring above the tree's tops, I follow, as if destined for the truth of life. I fly the sky free from the boundaries of the ground. Here I am limitless, choosing who I am, crossing what's real to a higher ground, seeing myself as I want, not as I am. Exhilarated, spinning in circles, cutting through the air with a scream at the top of my lungs, I shout, I am great, and it echoed forever for all to see. Astonished, we flew down to an old fallen tree for a landing. Talons grabbing a branch, I looked up to what is before me, and there is that mighty buck. As the deer came closer, with one antler he tilted his head and he touched me, the eagle on the beak, and my sight changed from mine to his. I didn't understand at all what was happening. I started to think maybe I'm losing my mind. I looked at the deer as he walked away into the forever woods. I stood here knowing something major has happened. I realized this day's different. The air's sweeter. The trees seem bigger, older. There's a virgin feeling like this forest had never been touched by man's hands. I turned and started to walk back to my cabin. Stopping, I brought both feet together. I glanced down and I saw there in a pair of leather moccasins. My pants are also made from skins, as is my shirt. I walked confused back to where I believe the cabin is. It's either gone or I'm lost. The only thing that's clear is the endless woods and fields. I walked through days into the nights. When the sun rose again, thirsty, I started looking for water. With each step, the need for a drink became more powerful. Walking with only one focus, water. It isn't a thirst for drinking. It's more a drive that tells me I must find water. As I approached the still pool in a mountain stream, my heart beat harder with anticipation of what I might find. There, the sun filled the center of the sky. I stood over the water and I looked down at its unbroken surface. As my face leaned over, my eyes met my eyes, confused. When they did, I was unable to move, shocked from the sight before me. There I saw a face that's my reflection, but I have never seen before. The reflection in the water looked back at me and asked deeply, What would you like me to do? I stood here speechless about a question just asked. From where I stood, I just watched myself, who isn't me, ask, What would you like to do? I didn't really understand what was happening, and as his lips moved again, I tried to close my eyes to take a second look, but couldn't. I felt paralyzed, while at the same time I heard, What would you like me to do? I thought before I responded. I knew I wanted to get out of this crazy dream, and I replied, I'd like to be able to close my eyes. Standing here at this moment in my life, I've never felt more confused or lost. Why? Why would you want me to close my eyes? I heard him speak as our eyes are closed. My sight went black and I stood here in darkness. I asked him again, Open them, please. And when my eyes were open, there were the colors of life before me. I tried to move without speaking, to take a step back or forth. However, there's nothing. I was tired of standing over the water looking at the stranger before me. I said, Stand straight. Take 2 steps back. I turned, walking without knowing if I am taking a step. What is asked is done. I cleared my thoughts and I asked myself, is this a dream or am I really an Indian? I was trying to figure out what was real, where I was, Nothing seemed possible at this point in my life, especially where I stood. I'm surprised since I didn't say anything out loud when I heard,
I'm the Indian, not you. You are the driver.
"Driver?"
You, you seem scared of me.
Scared, not the word I was thinking. I thought to myself I need another look, and I commanded, "Walk back to the water." I stood here motionless over the pool, and I looked at myself. Then I heard,
You see, I am Running Bear.
I thought about what I heard, and I asked, "Please, Running Bear, turn in a circle." He turned and looked in all directions, and when he stopped, I asked, "You do as I say?"
I can't move myself. As I said, you are the driver.
"The driver? What exactly do you mean by the driver?"
I would rather not answer any questions.
"What do you mean by that, especially now? I need some answers." As the silence grew, something startling happened. I realize I can't move anything. He can't move unless I tell him. It's a long time before I say a word, and when I do, it's brief. "Running Bear, take a step forward," and one step's taken. Standing here in mid-step, not moving, mumbling again, and step again, talking myself into walking. By morning, as the sun wakens, I found myself saying over and over, "Step, step, step." Sick of repeating, "Stop," I yelled. While I stood there, something hit me. As my feet throbbed, "Running Bear, I feel his pain." I asked him to take a rest. I looked up at the sun while asking him to close his eyes for a nap. It's been days since I've had any rest. When I awake, Running Bear is still sleeping. I'm locked in a black box, and I feel as if I have no substance. I feel empty inside. My tension's heightened as I heard something next to me moving on the forest floor. Panicking, I yelled, "Wake up, wake up." His eyes open and look straight into the sky. The noise is getting closer, and he lies not moving, and I yelled, "Look to your right." His head turned where I saw a raccoon fumbling under a fallen tree. I commanded Running Bear, "Stand." I looked down at the ground to try to figure out where I am. I saw my feet, legs, and I pulled my shirt out. My God! This isn't a dream. That was my first thoughts. Not moving, I stood in the middle of the woods. Nothing I could think of could justify what I'm thinking. I came up the mountains to get some relaxation, to get away from the city. That's something I'm not going to get out here. I was lost in this world that I found myself in, and then I heard,
You didn't come up here for those things.
"I thought you didn't answer any questions."
That wasn't a question. It was a thought.
This isn't real. It can't be.
If you are here, then it must be.
Real? What are you, nuts? There's nothing real here, and the faster I wake from this dream, or whatever this is, the better. Then I will laugh at all of this. I looked away and I mumbled to myself, "What reality is this?" There was a moment of silence before I heard,
You need not laugh, for only you can hear yourself. That is your reality. My brother of twins, it is time to stop looking back. You must look ahead. The cold is coming, and if you don't prepare from this second, you will die.
I thought about what he said, and I quickly replied, "You cannot die in a dream, and by morning, my, as you put it, twin brother, I will wake up and the only Running Bear I will see will be a brown bear on TV." I could feel a slight anger growing.
I am named after the mightier bear, not the brown. I am of the great bears. I know this land, and starting now, you must ready yourself for the white blanket.
I looked over the landscape. Fall is in the air. The leaves have lost much of their vibrant greens. I responded, "White blanket. In the morning when I open my eyes, I'll laugh. That's right, Running Bear. Laugh at this dream."
My friend, if you think this is a dream, then this is all it is. Nothing more.
You expect me to listen to you? I can't believe this. I'm arguing with myself. Half of me is a Running Bear and the other half is a dreaming fool. I can't wait to leave this nightmare and put it behind me forever. When I open my eyes, I hope I'll be in a warm bed, and Running Bear, you'll be a joke. Morning called with the sun beating down on my face, and I heard,
We must get ready for the white blanket.
"Get away from me." I asked him to climb to my feet. I started to run. I ran further and I ran harder, trying to wake myself, get away from him. Eventually, I stopped, gasping for air. While doing so, I heard,
"Are you okay? For you run from nothing."
"Get away from me. I'm not okay. And I'm not running from nothing. Can't you see I'm running from you?"
"My friend, you cannot run from yourself. This is a distance that can never happen."
"What is it you want from me? Why are you here?"
"I am not here. You are there. And it is not what I want from you, but what you came here to find."
I looked around at my environment and I asked, why would I come here to live like a beast? No shelter, no food, nothing that's me is here. Why would I come to you, Mr. Running Bear? And why is your name Running Bear? Why not Flying Bird or Leaping Frog? In my mind, I am thinking, I can't be taking this seriously. I felt the air get extremely tense as Running Bear told me,
"I was not born under those moons. I was born on the night of the bear. The sky burned the land and we all ran from the fire. That is how I was named Running Bear."
"You've got to be kidding me." I started to walk through the woods thinking to myself, this time I've really lost it. And in reply to that, I heard,
"What did you lose?"
"You can hear me think? Great, in the middle of the woods. Nobody around for what states, and I can't get any privacy, not even for a second." While I was walking, something dawned on me. Hey, wait a minute, Running Bear. You walked without me telling you. You ran when the thought of me making you run happened, not when I asked you.
"You're becoming a better driver. It does take some time. But once you steer with instinct instead of thought, you will find we will work well as one."
I found that I was walking through the woods, enjoying that I didn't have to speak to get myself to take a step. And that's when I heard,
"Watch it. Don't you take another step."
I froze, replying, what is it? Are we in trouble?
"It's a young tree. It's your next step. You will damage it."
You scared me half to death for that. I thought some wild pack of animals was attacking, jumping up and down on the tree, yelling, "You and your stupid tree!" Once I stopped flipping out over the lousy tree, I heard Running Bear tell me,
"You have hurt yourself by hurting that tree."
I paused and then responded, "What are you talking about? I stamped on a tree. Let me guess, your God lives in that tree, and by it dying, ripping it out of the ground and taking it in my hand, I shook it hard. You are dying." There was a long silence as I waited for him to reply. I sat and I just waited, and finally, Running Bear told me,
"I don't know if God does or does not live in that tree. The only thing I know is that it's a fruit tree. In a few seasons it would have produced many a meal. You will learn not to destroy what feeds you tomorrow today. If you always do this, you won't survive long in this world. I've gone hungry for long periods, and many a time a tree such as this is what gave me the strength to reach my next meal."
I looked at the broken tree in my hand, and I thought I would love to beat Running Bear over the head with it. I walked aimlessly through the woods trying to figure out what's happening or not. As I walked, I heard Firm.
"What are you doing?"
"What do you mean?" I asked.
"You are not using your time wisely."
"What are you talking about? I don't really care anymore."
"The white blanket is coming. You will care then. The cold is coming. You will suffer greatly in a slow death. You must start today. Look over the mountain. The clouds are coming."
Tired of walking, I sat to a log. Maybe this might be some kind of a test. I looked around and saw those clouds. A thought hit me. It snows 200 plus inches a year here. I stood and I told Running Bear, my friend, if this is a test, I'm failing. I don't want to live out here during the winter. My twin, as you so kindly put it, I'm out of here. I will not gather and hunt. This is not how I live. I like heating and air, a roof at min. Sitting on the ground, crossing my arms and legs, I told Running Bear, I will not play this game.
"This game, as you called, it's life and it's yours. The only way out is to die. If you think you're spiting me, you are gravely wrong. I won't feel what you feel. You will be the one that screams to the gods and damns this land. You'll suffer many moons in an ice cold winter that freezes everything it touches. I know. I have been here many times before.
Running Bear took in a long breath and let out a sigh before he responded.
My friend, that is your choice. It does not matter to me. I'll go on. But you'll have to go on with never knowing.
Knowing what, Running Bear?
You'll never know. That is all that matters.
Know what, Running Bear? I demanded.
You asked too many questions. You better start preparing. The clouds, they come.
My eyes followed and I saw the clouds. They seemed to be lowering to hug the ground. If this is something I'm supposed to do, then maybe I should listen. With that thought, I heard.
It's not that I want you to listen. I want you to follow.
Follow? You say follow? You can't even take a step. You can't do a thing unless I tell you. You're a cripple without me, Running Bear. Why should I follow you?
Enough of this useless time. Time is never on your side. I will let you know what you need as the moment calls. My twin, you went for the greatest awakening of your life. Walk with me and be freer than the winds that pass, or be the trees that blocks the wind. One will carry you to the ends of time, and one stands still for its time. Both are great and I love trees, but I travel as the wind.
I stood as to her feet. I looked at my surroundings and I thought, I'm an Indian and it's pre-white man. I stamped his foot in rage. Wake up, I yelled. Travel as the wind, is this what you say? The only way out of this is to meet you on your terms and then I'll be free? Is this what you're telling me, Running Bear?
I told you nothing you can't hear. I have no words for you. You walk as you are, I walk as me. I am a warrior, a hunter, skilled. I have survived to walk as the wise. I have no limits. I am free to walk on a higher ground.
You walk on a higher ground because you smoke too much peace pipe. Running Bear with his tone in his voice.
I walk on a higher ground because I choose to. Not that it isn't earned first. It is time for you to stop doing what you want and give the land what it is asking.
And what is the land asking, Running Bear? I hear no questions.
My twin, look around. You are right. There are no questions, not here, but there are many answers.
I thought to myself that none of this is real, that it's all in my head. I walked through the nights that came and went. I didn't care about no gathering or hunting. But along my path I crossed another's. Some distance away in my sight is a deer. I haven't eaten in a long time, and I whispered to Running Bear, I hope you're good with that bow. There's a deer. It's about 40 yards in front of us. There's no answer. I waited for him to reach for the bow from his back, and nothing happened. I demanded him. Lift your arm, Running Bear, and take that bow. I waited for him to take aim, and I told him again, Running Bear, take an arrow from your back and put it on the string. I watched as we attempted to line up the arrow to the string. I tried to direct him, concentrating hard, and the arrow fell to the ground. When I looked up, the deer leaped out of sight and my heart sank. I asked Running Bear, we had him. Why didn't you shoot?
Shoot what?
The deer.
I didn't see any deer.
But Running Bear, how could you miss it? It was right there.
My twin, for you, yes, it was in your sight. Not for me. I can't see.
I thought about it and I smirked. What do you mean? You're blind?
Deaf, too.
You can't see or hear? You've heard every word I've said.
Only because I'm hearing through you. You're my eyes. You're my ears. As a matter of fact, you're all of my senses.
That's great. No, I really mean it. You can't move unless I tell you. I'm your eyes. I'm your ears. I'm your everything. What do I even need you for? I waited for his reply. I thought about that missed opportunity with the deer for a long while. It haunted me. I asked Running Bear to take out his bow and I began to practice. I was teaching a blind man how to shoot. After repeated shots, we're getting better, but we haven't hit the target as of yet. Our arrows are looking pretty bad. We broke 2 and lost a few others. At least I have those 2 for parts, and I saved a few others for hunting. There have been several stormy nights of heavy rains. I've taken shelter in a make-do, whatever you want to call it, wood and leaf hut. But I built it, and for now I'll take it. I had to talk Running Bear through it, and that wasn't easy. Him not feeling the pain when he was hammering with the rock, that didn't work out to my favor. I have a few banged up fingers.
Tonight's the coldest yet. I'm rubbing 2 sticks trying to light a fire. Some hours later, my hands are raw and no fire's burning. I gave up, and then I heard from Running Bear, "There are steps to lighting a fire." I was pissed. What steps? Why didn't you tell me before? I wasted all this time. I'm freezing, and it's dark now. What am I supposed to do? You must think about what you are doing. Remember, you are the driver.
You were telling me I'm the driver of you. Why can't you just drive yourself? To me, you're pitiful. You have to depend on me for everything. Disgusted, I felt lost. I slept shivering all night. The next day, I walked by tree after tree, and I complained and I screamed. I lost all control, beating up Running Bear verbally. As the night dawned, the sun peeked over the mountains, and the gray of the day is followed by the morning's first frost. Crystal is all I see, and I face myself alone. The woods seemed to loom larger by the second. The sky grew higher, and the land seemed to spread wider with each passing beat of my heart. I swallowed hard. There is no one else but me. Falling to my knees, I looked up to the heavens, while I held my hands out asking, what have I done to create this for myself? Hanging my head to the ground, I mumbled, why me? Why? I don't deserve to be left like this. In my own silence of self-pity, I listened to myself cry dry tears. As they fell to the ground, they landed on air, and I have never felt emptier. Running Bear, I asked, are you still with me? There is no answer, and I repeated, Running Bear, are you there? Running Bear's right. I'm going to suffer a cruel, slow death. I wasted too much time. What's next? What must I do? What would Running Bear do? That's when I finally heard from Running Bear.
I would hunt and gather.
Running Bear, you were still there?
We're one, my twin, as I have been telling you. There's never a separation.
But Running Bear, you haven't answered, talked, or even let me know you've existed in days. What happened to you?
You closed me out. To you, I wasn't real. And if I'm not real, how can you hear me?
But weeks have passed. There may be no time for me to learn what I must to survive. You should have come back earlier. I might die. Shivering cold, I wrapped my arms around myself.
The peace pipe was really good. Knocked me into another world. I was plastered.
I had to think about that for a moment. Really?
No, it wasn't the peace pipe. I have for every step you took said you must gather and hunt. But what words are not heard might as well go unsaid.
Running Bear, why didn't you make me here? I'm getting scared. My toes and fingers are going numb from the cold.
You were not very wise with time. With the time it took to ask that useless question, you could have begun to move ahead. But still, you stand in the same footsteps as yesterday.
But I don't know what to do. I don't know how to survive out here. I'm a city slicker, not a country boy. Running Bear explained.
You can talk your way through the cold, dark days of winter. See where that takes you, or you will start in silence to learn this land.
Quickly, my eyes focused on the sound that I heard. Startled, I laid quickly to the ground, not breathing, listening. I whispered, Running Bear, it's another Indian. He quickly responded.
Does he see you? No, why? What should I do? If I were you, I wouldn't move. You're not ready to fight.
Fight? I'm no fighter. I've never been in a fight.
That doesn't work to your favor. Keep silent. Don't let that Indian see you. I'm sure he is ready for battle.
What do you mean battle? asking as I gazed harder at the Indian as he looked in my direction. With our eyes on one another, I told Running Bear, stand, and he did, straight up and down. From his back, I saw the other Indian's bow, his axe at his side, standing face to face 30 yards, all time stopped, and I asked, Running Bear, what's next? No answer, and as my rival pulled his bow from his back, I shouted to Running Bear, run! Run like the wind you say carries you. Take a step, another, faster, Running Bear, you must run faster. I commanded to Running Bear, cut left. Now cut between the trees. I ran faster and faster as instinct took over. I ran at full speed. From the corner of my eye, I saw an arrow slide through the top back of my arm. That scared the hell out of me, and I ran. I ran deeper into the woods where I told Running Bear to stop. I was winded. I needed to catch my breath. I squeezed my teeth and took the arrow by my hand. I held it tight, breathing through my teeth. Phlegm hung from my chin. I put the back of the arrow to the tree, quickly turned, snapping the arrow in half. It broke inside my arm. I pulled the shaft out, reached around, and pulled the second half free. As I did, another arrow grazed my leg, sticking to the ground before me. I leaped over the creek, slid down a steep embankment, flipped a few times, and spun back to my feet. Finally, when I stopped running, out of breath but driven by fear, I have Running Bear back up, and we're running again. Running for what seemed eternity. I thought back to my dream when I was the deer being hunted. I have those same feelings now. That's when I heard Running Bear warn me,
find water, walk in it. As long as you leave tracks, they'll follow.
I thought of his words. I ran for the lowest point between the mountains. If there's water around, it'll have to be there. Bleeding badly from my arm and the graze across the side of my thigh, I am becoming faint. After running for what seemed forever, I stopped to tie up the wounds. This takes up valuable time. I know I am being tracked, but if I didn't stop the bleeding, I was surely dead. At the bottom of the mountain is a stream, but it's running brown and mad from the rains. I looked around and I asked, what should I do, Running Bear? Waiting for his answers, none came. The water's not safe, I thought to myself. I'd be better off walking the banks. Suddenly, I had a bad feeling in my gut while I stood at the wild water's turning edge. When I looked down, I saw an arrow stuck through my body. I leaped into the raging water with no hesitation. I had to gasp for a deep breath as I felt the ice chill of the water soak through my clothes, shocking myself into numbness. With my eyes open under the water, all that's seen is thick brown. I held my breath for what seemed a lifetime, finally releasing it. I gasped and I inhaled the cold water. For a moment, all was strangely, intensely quiet. The only thing clear is I am breathing water, and I felt its coldness fill my lungs. I remembered exhaling and taking another deep breath of water. That's when I woke up here on the bank of the river. I have no idea of anything, only that it's dark. It must be nighttime. But I'm still alive. Running Bear, we are in bad shape, I said, looking at the arrow through my stomach. We're going to die. I close my eyes. Sleep's calling deeply, and I sink into it. Waking, I asked right away for Running Bear to open his eyes. The sun is high overhead, and the only thing clear is pain from everywhere. One thing confuses me. I smell a fire. I look to the arrow that was in my gut, and it's gone. Unable to sit up, I lean slightly sideways to take a look around. There is a fire, but nothing else is seen. I whispered, Running Bear, someone has helped us. I felt weak. Not the hunter, but the hunted. Taking a deep breath, something inside of me said, I must give this my best effort if I'm going to understand what's going on here. It was a few hours when an old Indian walked up to me. I was still on the ground, huddled in pain. His silver hair hung long down his back with the sun it shined brightly. When he spoke, his lips sank in. He had no teeth. Wrinkled, his skin hung from under his chin, and I looked deeply into his faded blue eyes. The Indian that helped me talked to me in a tongue I didn't understand. Not sure of the time that passed. Healing took time, and by the time I'm able to walk again, the cold's digging in. The old man feeds and tends my wounds, dressing them with his own mixtures. One day when I awake, the old man is gone and he never returned. As I leave my healing grounds, I soon understand why the old Indian never came back. In a praying position, back flat to the ground, hands crossed over his chest, I found him dead. It's a sobering moment, and how real everything is. I noticed a movement next to the old Indian. When I looked closer, I saw a curled tiny wolf cub at his side. The cub lifted up, looked at me, and walked slowly with his tail between his back legs, head down in a passive position. Confused, he took a look back at the dead old Indian. He next walked up to me submissively. I could see he was scared. I bent down and I picked up the cub and I held him in my arms. I looked into his white and black masked face. I could see he could use a friend, as could I. As the weeks pass, it's a long time since I've eaten well. It's becoming a major issue. Food is a must. Both the cub and I are growing thin. Beginning this hunt, I'm thinking to myself, I am no hunter. Never wanted to kill anything. Today, I either become a hunter or I am on my way to starvation. I searched to find anything to eat for a long time, or hunt, or scrape up. I looked down at the cub. He looked back up at me. His eyes are the lightest of gray. I leaned down to a knee and I pet him while I said, "It's you and me. It's time we ate something bigger than scraps." I took the bow and arrow in hand, and I searched for whatever moved. By mid-morning, I heard a noise. The wolf cub lifted his ears and he laid flat to the ground. Before us, through the bush and the trees, is a mess of wild turkey, scratching and pecking at the ground. I told Running Bear, "Take the bow. Now take an arrow. Kneel to one knee and draw the bow back." As the string kissed our face, I am the hunter, gracefully ready to kill. I took aim. I whispered, "Release your fingertips, Running Bear." And as I did, the arrow soared from the string and over the turkey I aimed at. The other turkeys looked up, and in a wail of cries, flapping for the air and running away. As they disappeared, I'm bummed. I glanced to where I had saw them, and there was a turkey trying to get airborne, and my arrow stuck through him. I stood in absolute shock. I actually hit one of the birds, and I'm watching as he tried to get away from us. I yelled, "Hey, that's our dinner." I saw the wolf cub take off. He's immediately after it. As the turkey disappeared over a small hill, so too did the cub. I yelled to Running Bear, "I hit one, I hit one." Once I made it to the top of the hill, I saw the cub had the turkey by a wing, and it's fighting to get free from him. I sprinted toward them, and I picked up a stick. As I swung it hard, I broke it over the turkey, missing, hitting the ground. After I got kicked in the gut a few times by the turkey, I had him in my hands. I choked it harder to be safe. After the bird was dead, and I was sure it was dead, I let it drop to the ground, and then I laughed. "Great job," I said to the cub. I could see the cub was proud as he leaped up on me, and we celebrated our first kill together. I thought back to my words before the shot, "Graceful," and I start to laugh. Nothing was graceful about this kill. After I had a fire lit, Running Bear explained to me how we should save the flight feathers from the right wing of the turkey. They give the arrow the spin needed to make it fly straight. After the cub and I stuffed their faces by eating the whole bird, neck, liver, kidneys, the heart, everything that looked edible was eaten, and now I felt sick. Unable to move, I relaxed with the young wolf by my side. I looked at the cub and I said out loud, "It's time I named you my hunting partner." As I pet him down the full length of his back, I looked to the skies for an answer, and I waited a name to come to me worthy of such a great turkey anchor. He held that bird in place for me, and if it weren't for him, I'd still be chasing it. Thinking for a couple hours, it hit me. What's a good name? I know. I'll name you in memory of the old Indian that saved me. You from now on will go by the name of Old Silver, and we are traveling companions. It felt good to have a friend. I put my arm over her shoulder and I heard,
We must start to gather and hunt. There should be plenty of nuts, pine seeds, and roots."
I really didn't want to hear what Running Bear had to say at this moment, so I totally ignored him, paid no attention, folded my hands up behind my head, closed my eyes, and I started to fall asleep. I listened and I heard Running Bear complain about gathering again, and I told him straight up, "Not now. I'm relaxing after a great meal." Running Bear took a moment, then he insisted,
"I'm telling you, If you want to survive this, I think you should start to do the things you need to for the upcoming winter.
Running Bear, why do you think so much? Come on, lighten up, would you? Can't you see we're relaxing after a great meal?
I am repeating what the land is calling for.
Running Bear, why should I listen to you? Why? Why should I listen to anything you have to say? Maybe I'll do better on my own. Besides, the land is calling for me to sleep. So would you kindly lay back, shut your eyes, and your mouth?
That is what makes life great. Choice. Everybody has one. You can do what you please. You never have to hear a word I say again. If this is what you choose, then you walk with only your wisdom. If you know you have a better way, that is fine. But if you are not sure, I hope your guesses are right. We walk in the same direction. The choices or the guesses are what bring us to the limits of who we are. I know once time passes, you do not get another chance with that time, but it shapes your future.
I felt a heat from inside. A fire was growing in Running Bear, and he was clear.
I do not guess. I was taught from the elders to be of the wise. I walk with you, for I have no choice. I am at your mercy, your beck and call. I go by your decisions. The only thing I have for you is what I know about this world. That's the reality that's before you. You're a stranger to this land, yet you doubt all I say. You must be very wise. I will not bother you with the wisdom of the ages that my ancestors passed down to me.
This, after being said, is followed by quiet. That worried me, and I said the wise thing. Running Bear, I wish you and your ancestors would just go away. I turned away from him by turning to my side. I know he's still there, but I didn't care. After a nap, I sat up and looked around at my surroundings. Not comfortable. I felt like a spider with no web, a dog without his best friend, or like a kid in school for the first time. I'm out of place at heart, soul, and mind. The only thing I can do is to think, what the hell is going on? It's time for me to understand that either I accept this where I am or I surrender to my fears and just give up. If I were to try at this, whatever this is, what do? I'm lost. I don't know what my next steps are or where even to begin. In a calm tone from my mind, I heard,
To do your best, I would gather wood. Fire is needed. For the nights that come, they will be mighty cold.
My eyes looked over the mountains and a mist streaked the air sweeping down the slopes. Listening, maybe for the first time in my life, I heard,
When that wind blows, things change fast. It's time you did what was needed, or you won't have time to do anything.
By morning there's a dampness that is frozen over all. I thought of my home and all it had to offer, and the fact I've been in the same clothes for I can't even remember how long. I smelled terrible. I needed some shampoo and a shower, brushing my teeth, what I wouldn't give for toilet paper. I have been eating whatever I can pick up or catch. I would give much for a refrigerator stocked, filled with packaged goods. It's the morning after the first heavy snow, and it's deep. I took cover under a rock ledge. The bitter cold froze my breath to my face. Shivering, I huddled in an attempt to keep warm. Old Silver, he has his winter coat. It looked like to him the cold isn't even there. But for me, I can't get warm. My fingers and my toes have no feelings left in them. My nose is blistered purple. The winds howl overhead, and the snows blow filling my heart with its bitter coldness. This is the time of the strong. I thought maybe I'm not of the strong. In spirit, I am weak. The weeks that followed are filled with blinding snowstorms, and the nights are bone-chilling. I looked at my reality, my life. It's filled with resentment. I wanted out of this, and I yelled to Running Bear, This is my end. I can't fight anymore. Life isn't worth living to me if I have to suffer this bad. I'm giving up. I laid down to sleep, and from the corner of my one eye, I watched as the fire started burning out. Only red coals were left fading black to a gray ash around the edges. But it didn't matter. Not this night. I didn't care anymore. And as my eyes closed, I tried to escape my reality, my pain. Slowly, I drifted to sleep. I'm dreaming vivid colors unfolding into sun-filled fields of waving green grasses. Now that I am out of the cold, the bitterness of my heart is gone. The sun warms my soul, giving me a comfortable feeling. Free of my pain of life, I can bend my hands, I can wiggle my toes. Life is great again. I looked across the fields of waving grasses. I could see that Old Silver's running at me. Old Silver, I yelled, it's warm. What a beautiful day. All is so bright. No clouds, no suffering. What a perfect place to be. Bending to greet my friend, it's great to be free of life's pains. I stood with his paws over my shoulders and I rode the back of his head. When I touched Old Silver, I could feel the wind whirl around my body. The dust picked up as Old Silver faded in the twisted cloud. When the wind stopped, the air cleared, and the old Indian stood before me with his hands on my shoulders. I backed up and looked at the old Indian in his face. On the sun-filled day, snowflakes began to flutter, falling in the air as the temperatures plummeted. The old Indian with a look told me to go back, to wake up, rebuild the fire that'll keep me until morning. I yelled, no, I won't go back. I'm finished. I will suffer no more. With those words, the clouds broke. It began to warm and the sun shined brightly. I looked about and I said to myself, I'm staying here. My only thoughts were, it's the most beautiful place I've ever been. I know it with no doubt. This has to be heaven in my heart. I turned back and looked again at the old Indian, and he told me with no words, you're not defeated, you're giving up. You should never give up. Only after you have fought to the end do you surrender. As he talked, it went colder and colder. I felt the skin hurt from the biting emotionless chill of the freeze. And then I heard, your best days are ahead of you. But first you must get through the challenges of the hard times. The cold winters of the heart, they will pass. And why should I go back? I screamed. To die a slower, longer death when it can end now? Here I am free of my pain. A man as wise as you knew when to lie down and call it a day. Isn't that what you did? I faced him eye to eye. After all, you walked away from me. You crossed your arms, lay down on the ground, and called it quits. You let yourself die. Why shouldn't I do the same? The old Indian shook his head as he told me, you are wrong. I have walked to my end. I knew it was my time. I wasn't quitting out of self-pity like you are. I was called. I had to come back. You should think before you talk. Your words from here are filled with no thought. I could see Old Silver's eyes as he looked away from the old Indian after he had died, and how he looked back at me when he saw his friend had passed. I could see he would have the same look when he awoke to find me dead. I thought, I can't give up. It wouldn't be fair to Old Silver. And the cold started to turn the land to gray, then back to white. The more I realized I must fight and survive this, the colder it became and the pain commenced. Staring at the old Indian as the snow flew madder, he dropped to all fours, spinning back into Old Silver. I was lost in the decision to go back and face my reality. In this dream, Old Silver jumped up and started to lick my face. I felt he was trying to tell me it's okay. There will be better days ahead. When I did finally open my eyes, exhausted, Old Silver was licking my face. I glanced up at the trees' tops. The winds blew, waving them as to greet me back to my life. Lying here bundled up in a pain that can't be real. I'm not ready for this, and I sat up and gasped. Fingers and arms are stiff. It took all the strength I could muster to get back to my feet. Old Silver faced away from me, growling. His heckle was up and his tail was curled. I turned to where he looked and I saw a pack of wolves running at us. Old Silver started immediately at them. Hurting, I rose to my feet and I watched to see what happened next. I yelled, no, as they attacked Old Silver violently. Quickly, he's pinned to the ground on his back with the other wolves over him. As I watched my companion getting torn apart, I started to run toward the fight. I knocked two of the wolves away from Old Silver, but the others turned on me. In the fury, all is lost, my pain, time, and the fact that I'm in the battle of my life. I can feel the teeth biting hard on my arm, shoulder, and head. Fighting, I rolled over to protect my face. It's useless. The wolf biting at my head started shaking his violently. I felt his teeth ripping deep. Then he is gone, and I am fighting the one on my arm. At a glance, seeing Old Silver is ripping him apart, And as the wolf he's fighting retreated, he turned his attention to my battle, and that wolf chased off. To my side is a dead wolf with his throat torn open. We celebrated our victory over the wolves. Old Silver stood tall, seeing the other two wolves running out of sight. He followed them for a bit and turned. He ran back to my side. Both of us are bleeding, me especially from my neck and face. I started to look for a place to sit. I felt sick to my gut. Wounded, I collapsed to my knees. Dizzy, I felt nauseous. I sat to the ground and rolled over to my back. When I awoke, the cold was all I felt. Blood stained the snow from the battlegrounds to where I laid. My face felt badly cut. My hair is frozen to my skin by blood. I made it to my feet where I walked to a tree, leaned to it, back first, huddled, starting to cry. Everywhere is extreme pain. When I kind of got my bearings and I came to, I almost passed out from the sight of my hand. In the battle, it was torn wide open. It looks frozen. I didn't even know it was injured. As my fears roll down my cheeks in tears, I am terrified, and I asked, Running Bear, are you there? I need you now.
As I said, I never leave.
I'm at my end. I can't fight anymore.
That's your choice. Nothing I can do about it.
You're not going to tell me I must go on?
No, my friend. I won't do that. My twin, in blood, maybe it is time for you to lay down. Call quits. Say goodbye to the hell you have created for yourself.
Hearing those words, an anger grew in me. I stood. I didn't create this. I'm not responsible for the snow, the cold, and the wolves. I didn't create any of this. Not at all.
You're right. You didn't create the snow, the cold, or the wolves. You created none of those things, and they come with the turning of time. You made your choice long time ago not to prepare as well as you could have for today.
I did my best.
Not in the beginning. You did what you wanted. When the seasons of life were warm, this is when you should have prepared for this moment. You guessed your way through many days. You wasted time, and now it's gone. You say you did your best. Your best, you say? That's not what I see.
I was deeply offended by what Running Bear told me. I think mostly because I knew it was the truth. I told him, you wanted me to do things I didn't see as being right, so why should I have followed you? Running Bear, I could feel he didn't like what I had to say. I could feel his kind of tension building up in him.
I never asked you to follow. I let you know what was taught, things in steps, and those steps are of the seasons. You needed to see things your way for yourself before you were open to what I had to say. You took the hard way. It's better sometimes to learn from another. It's a shame you see yourself as beaten. As long as I could put an effort forward, then my steps to go on would be taken.
As I spent this time here, I felt a sadness grow on my own face. Before I told Running Bear, I have no steps left. I am finished. Everything I have done in life I have failed. I am a useless piece of crap.
My twin, is that what you believe, or is it true? What is it? Your hand hurts? Your back is sore? Your knees won't bend? You ask yourself, do you really believe you're beaten? You have nothing left, or are you a little bit of a crybaby?
I looked over and down at Old Silver. To now, the only person, well, dog or wolf, whatever the hell he is, I can trust. I thought he isn't giving up. Why should I? I have plenty of answers, but what reasons did I have for going on? I looked at my frost and wolf-bitten hand. I wondered if it's even savable. I held it up and I said, Look at my hand, Running Bear. I'm in bad shape. Sarcastically, I heard Running Bear tell me,
You're only in as bad a shape as you believe you are. No more.
And I believe I am in terrible shape. Look at me. Eyes started to fill with tears. I was so defeated. I didn't want to argue with him. I didn't even want to take another breath. There is no more said on this night, and the nights that follow are as bitter as they can be. The woods seem to have no life. All is frozen by the chill stone cold of the deep winter. Walking, searching for food, old Silver stopped. I looked at him and called, "Come on, boy." But he won't move, not a step forward. He's looking down at the snow and he seemed to be listening. I watched him for a few moments and I insisted, "Old Silver, come." Old Silver wouldn't step forward. He kept putting his paw down and lifting it back up. I let out a breath and angrily shouted, "We need to find food. Come on, Silver, now." And I started to walk away from him. I stopped, looked back at Silver. He still hadn't moved, and I began to sink. Not sure what was happening at first. I felt a cold wet surround my feet. That was when I realized I'm falling through thin ice. As my foot broke through, the ice slanted and Silver and I slipped into the icy waters below. As the ice I am standing on slid under the layers of ice behind it, Silver and I began to slide with it under the chilling water. I grabbed for Silver. With a handful of his fur and skin, I threw him back up on the land. It was just in time. He was about to go under the ice, and there he wouldn't have had a chance. As I slid sideways in the stream towards the ice that covered it, the water started to pull me under. Last chance, a root exposed, and my hand gripped it firmly. The racing water swept me to the bank, where I pulled myself out. I rolled to my back where old Silver was, licking my face. I could sense he knew that was a close one. There was no hesitation, and I jumped back up onto my feet. I looked for wood immediately for a fire. I knew I had a few moments before frostbite started. As I walked, panic sets in. It'll take time to start a fire, I thought. With each step, the pain from the feelings of my feet beginning to freeze is greater. After little time passed, I found myself with my shoes off, holding my feet up to a small but a burning fire. After a few moments, I set my feet back to the snow. I ran to find more wood. Now, back at the flickering fire, I added some larger sticks. I sat my fur boots next to it, and I waited for them to dry. As the feeling started to come back to my feet, so did the pain. After several more trips for wood, my boots dried, and I placed them back on my feet. I sat close to the fire all night, and I thought about it. I was lucky my feet didn't freeze. The next time Silver doesn't want to step forward, neither will I. In the morning, we walked through the snow. I thought about food much of the time anymore. Old Silver did well hunting mice. He listened between his steps and pounced on a mouse or a rat under the snow. Here I'm in the need of food, watching from a distance as old Silver hopped across a snow-covered field eating mice. I started to wonder if they tasted good. Quickly I shook my head. Yuck. As I watched old Silver feeding, he suddenly looked up and froze with intensity. His ears hugged the wind for sound. With one step he is in full stride. Silver is running in the direction of a rabbit. It leaped up on the thick snow and started to dash back and forth. Old Silver sunk to his chest. He struggled for each step, but the chase is on.
"Run, Silver, run," I whispered under my breath. I heard Running Bear reply, "Run, Big Eagle, run." Old Silver leaped at the hare. He missed it, and then quickly is on his tail again. My hopes rose higher as he closed. The rabbit jumped up high into the air. It seemed forever for it to come back down. And when it did, it dove under the snow on impact. Silver after him almost simultaneously. The chase ceased. For me, the entire forest froze with anticipation.
Walking slowly in Silver's direction to see if he had it. From under the snow, the hare popped its head up and I yelled, "Behind you, Silver, behind you!" Before the words are out, Silver's back on his heels. Again it dove under the snow and Silver stood at attention, listening. I was worried the rabbit might have an escape. I walked toward Silver. He looked at me, and from the look I knew I had to freeze. I watched Silver inch his shoulders forward. I stood praying the rabbit would make a mistake. The elements around soaked in. I haven't eaten meat in a long time. Roots and nuts are in short supply. Here I am standing in the snow to my knees, with the wind blowing over, howling at the trees, and I have never wanted to eat Bugs Bunny more. Old Silver held his stance. He didn't twitch, not a move. He looked to where he last saw the rabbit dive. I laid half under the snow as the sun started its descent. Silver swung his head 10 feet from where the rabbit first dove under the snow. There we both saw it again. Slowly my hopes rose. Before the rabbit's out, old Silver had the screaming kicking hair in his draws. I stood to my feet, my body filled with exhilaration. Silver, with a quick bite, ended the rabbit, and its kicking back legs stiffened. Old Silver took the hair by the scruff of his neck, and I watched as he turned and walked in my direction. He laid that rabbit at my feet while he looked up at my eyes. I could see how proud he was. Old Silver looked at me and then down to the rabbit he laid at my feet. He turned and walked to the field and started to hunt mice again. I dropped to my knees before the rabbit. I looked at Silver and he's swallowing another mouse. Not sure what to think of the gesture laying before me. I took the rabbit in my good hand, and I am humbled by a wild-born animal. I have never had a friend that has made such a sacrifice. I know he is a wolf, but he is so much more than that to me. I took the time and butchered the rabbit. Not one piece went to waste. He even broke the bones to get to the marrow, with many other parts that are given to Old Silver. By a fire I held a stick, roasted meat staring through the flames. The snow glows with the power of a blue moon. Forgetting my pain for a moment, I thought this isn't that bad. I looked up at the sky. The stars owned my eyes. It's like nothing I've ever known. Here, in the hardest times of my life, and through all the pain, the bitterness, I sit enjoying a single moment. I came back to my reality and took my eyes from the stars, and I remembered words that rung in my ears. I asked Running Bear, "Who is Big Eagle?" There's no answer, and I repeated, "Running Bear. As the chase started for the rabbit, you said, 'Run, Big Eagle, run.' What did you mean by that?"
My twin, you already know that answer.
I realized that if I'm going to understand what he's saying, it'll be on my own time. As the brisk sky deepened with the stars, the rabbits picked clean. The next morning I found myself awake, but my fire has died. It's early dawn. Old Silver's looking, and I see what he sees. It's smoke. It's not far, and I silently rolled to my side and I worked my way to my feet, being careful not to make any sounds. I crawled towards its source. It's the Indian that attacked me. He's sleeping next to his own dying fire. At first, I'm not sure what to do, but I thought back to the 3 hours he shot at me. I've become a good shot since then. Easy pickings from this distance, and with instinct and no hesitation, I thought, "Running Bear, take the bow from your back." I've done this now many times, the strings at my face staring down the shaft of the arrow, and he's in my sights. Running Bear and Old Silver waited for the arrow to fly, but my fingers wouldn't release their hold. I thought to myself, I can't kill him. Putting the bow down, I gave a come on signal for Old Silver to follow. I walked for hours, silently putting as much distance between that Indian and me as possible. It was a long time before I heard.
My twin, why didn't you take that shot? He would have, no doubt.
I walked past trees in deep thought about my answer. Proudly, I said, "He isn't me."
You will fight him one day, or he will kill you while you sleep.
Well then, I hope that day never comes. Maybe we'll never meet again, or someday we'll become friends. You never know what's going to happen in the future. I know in my heart I should have killed him. For sure he would have finished me. Time passed before Running Bear did tell me.
All goes and comes in full circle. Time has ways of bringing you back to a mistake that could have been erased.
Took a deep breath, thought about before I responded. Running Bear, would you have killed him? Could you live with yourself knowing you killed a man while he slept?
I will say this. If a man tried to kill me when my back was turned, I could overlook many things.
Then for you, that is a yes.
For many, that would be justice. Didn't say I'd kill him, but I'm surprised you didn't. He shot at you a few times.
Nothing else is said, only time seemed to pass in the moments of lost and found seconds. Winter, at its pace, turns its clock. The time it had is growing old. When I opened my eyes on this morning, I saw something sweet. Drops of water are falling from the frozen trees. The ice is snow, it's melting. For the first time since the winter began, I see dripping water. This is a special time, and I walk with a joy that's proud. Like a peacock with my feathers up and spread for the whole world to see, I have made it through this winter. Sure, there are a few cold nights ahead, but the long winter is behind me. Walking to a rock sitting, I can't believe I made it this far.
Me! I actually made it! I looked down to my hand that was hurt badly by the wolves and frostbite. It isn't the same hand, but it is there. I felt a pride I have never felt. I looked at old Silver, and he saw the eyes I saw when he gave me that rabbit. But it's my eyes that now glow with pride. I thought to myself, I am Running Bear, the Indian.
No, I am Running Bear.
You are Running Bear, you say. I say I am you.
You can't be me. You're the driver, that's all.
Let me get something straight. I controlled all of your movements for the last months. Every one.
Yes?
You're blind and can't hear, right?
Correct.
You do all through me. I'm your ears, I'm your eyes, touch and smell. You can't bend a muscle or even move a finger. I have to tell you to wake up, to go to the bathroom. Do you know how hard it was for me the first time in using leaves?
What's your point?
My point is, I am you. I am Running Bear. There is no response from Running Bear, not right away. There's a grabbing feeling telling me I can never be what Running Bear is. I said, Running Bear, you're right, but I am a good driver, and I smiled proud of myself. Running Bear responded,
You're the only one to make it through their first winter.
All went blank. The first to make it through a winter. This echoed on my head, and I asked, Running Bear, what do you mean, the first?
You seem upset.
I'm not sure what to make of it.
There have been many before you.
As the words Running Bear spoke sunk in, I realized there's more to what is seen. I started to wonder what was real, or is this still a dream? At this point, what I wondered didn't matter anymore. It's what is perceived to be real, and this is real to me. The winter's end came fast. I am growing in many ways. I walk with a cocky attitude. I know it can only get better from here. I am in the spring of life. The gray winter's a memory, but will turn with the time back into reality. It's the circle that never breaks. The spring fills me with warming days, and the nights are chilly but not cold. The seasons turn with each step I take. The summer passed itself to the beginning of fall. As the sun crossed the middle of the day, I can tell by the fruit on the trees, the nuts, berries, and roots, it's time for the gathering. Thinking back to my first winter, I will do plenty of that. But before I gather, I'm in the mood for meat. I looked at old Silver, patted my leg a few times. Come on, boy, time to hunt. I've hunted the spot in the past. Many deer walk this path. Hiding downwind, Silver and I have a clear shot. It's not long till dawn settled and several does are in walking sight. With instinct, the bow's raised. Aim is taken. I shoot with 2 fingers, not 3, and they're released. It's strange how you watch the arrow fly, slicing the air. It bends slightly in its flight, heading for its target. It nailed the shoulder high on the chest. The other deer scattered from the sound of the impact. Tracking the blood trail, we walked through most of the day. It wasn't a clean hit, or we would be eating by now. As the day neared its end, old Silver ran ahead, and I saw the deer laying dead in a puddle of its own blood. I hung the deer by the back leg over a tree branch. Its fur skinned, the meat is sliced into pieces, and the bones are dismantled. Old Silver, who always watched me butcher the deer. However, for the first time he turned and jumped to his feet. I looked in that direction, and I heard branches breaking with a roar. I looked quickly to where the sound is coming from. A bear is running at us, charging at full speed. Silver took off towards the bear. I reached to stop him. I missed, and I yelled, "No, Silver, come back! Come back, Silver!" Silver, with his heckle up, ran to the bear, stopped in front of it, growling and snapping. The bear's too slow to get at Silver, and that bear took his attention quickly from Silver and started to charge at me. Silver snapped at the bear to chase him. but its focus is me. In a panicked mode, I turned and I started to run. I heard the bear close on my heels. My heart raced faster than my steps. Knowing it had me, I was running as hard as I could, waiting for the bear to take me. That's when I heard the cry of battle. I turned while still keeping up a good pace to see Silver biting the bear's hide. I stopped to run back and I yelled, "No, Silver, no, forget it, it's not worth it." I started to sprint at the bear, picking up sticks, throwing them. "No!" I screamed as it took Silver in his jaws, shaking him violently. "Let him go!" I shouted at the top of my lungs. In the heat of the moment, seeing Silver savagely thrown about, losing myself in the reality, I charged at the bear, mumbling to myself, "If you're going to take him, you're going to have to take me too." As I ran to the fight, the entire time my eyes were glued to Silver. He had given up and is limp in the bear's mouth. One final scream, "Ah!" and I dove in. Awakening, just moaning. I felt my entire body's broken. I thought for a moment, remembering the bear, with my face to the ground, knowing old Silver, the last time I saw him, was lifeless. I squeezed my eyes to cover my pain, leaned up to look around, struggling just to get my bearings and look around. I'm not sure really where I'm at. At first, I see blood everywhere, and old Silver is flat to his side. Unable to take another breath, I reached for my friend with my one arm. Laying to my side, I said, "Old Silver," not sure when I try to stand, my leg bends in the middle of the shin, the bones an inch out of the skin. I looked at Silver crying. "Silver, be alive, please." "Not Silver." I crawled to my friend, his fur soaked in his own blood, and my tears rained down from me. All I heard was my heart beating, pounding out of my chest, spelling out the words, "Please be okay, old Silver." I wanted to touch him so badly, but afraid. I didn't want to feel his body cold with no life. I take some deep breaths. I gather up my energy and I try to be brave. I didn't want to know he's gone. So badly I wanted him to be alive. I've never felt the way I do right now at this moment. Why, Silver? You didn't have to save me. Why did you do this to yourself? I'm nothing without you. Don't you know that? I would rather have died than see you hurt, my friend. From my knees, I looked up to the sky and screamed to my God, "No!" And it forever echoed off the surroundings as it bounced back into my head. I fell lower down and I leaned over Silver. I have never felt such guilt mixed with anger. I laid on him and there I felt his chest rise just a bit, but it moved. I gazed into Silver's face. Blood slowly bubbled from his nose and trickled to the ground. "But he's alive! He's alive!" And I screamed, "He's alive!" Struggling with this damn broken leg. I know I must get to water if we're going to have a chance. I finally have what I'm looking for. The bear took most of the deer. However, it did leave some things I needed. I found a rock to sit on. Oh, my leg's killing me. With the sinew from the deer's meat, I made string to hold my broken leg. With my hand, I pulled the bone back under the skin. Oh, I tried to make the two broken ends meet, screaming the entire time. I placed the two broken halves of my bones back together. The entire time I was thinking of Silver lying motionless. There's no hesitation. The pain doesn't bother me, no matter. Not what is important. Time is what matters. If I'm going to save him, I'm going to have to act fast. I struggled. My hands were shaking. I tied one of the deer's shin bones at a time around my leg. Soon I have all four tied tight to support mine. Taking a deep breath, hobbling, limping hard to what is left of the meat, butchered, I put it over my back. With the deerskin, I made a dragon hammock to put Silver on. I started walking toward the direction of water. It's more than a day's hike at this pace. However, I will not rest till we're there. Luckily, Silver is not bleeding badly. The blood coming from his mouth and nose has stopped. By the second sun, I've come to a small creek. Silver still hasn't moved. What is needed for a fire is gathered quickly and one is lit. I'm hurting in many ways, but the heart hurts worse. Silver's hanging in. I've been force feeding him a little meat. There's a lot of pain. Me, I'm not doing so well. My legs turn colors and swollen. I think I got gangrene. I looked at Silver as he fell asleep. My dreams bring me back to the battle and the bear. My view is different in the dream as I am a spectator, watching the events as they unfold. I saw Silver fighting the bear, and in blurred, disturbed movements, I saw the old Indian silhouette surrounding Silver. I continued to stay in the stream. It seemed to go on forever. This is when I saw my impact with the bear. It knocked Silver free to the ground. That is where I found him when I came to. Powerfully, I am thrown aside with one swipe of the bear's mighty paw. What felt an eternity when I finally opened my eyes from the stream. Silver lifted his head to look in my direction. It's a deep stare of companionship. Overwhelmed by the moments, I responded to seeing him awake. Silver, you're back. And I laid down and I hugged him, and this forever I will take. Ah, man. I let out deep breaths of relief, never wanting this to end. I laid here and I hugged him for the rest of the moments that followed. I thought for the first time in my life, I felt what true love is. Yes, I know it's a wolf, but I've never felt closer to anyone or anything before like I felt at this moment for Silver. It's weeks before we are on the move again, but we both managed, both healing our wounds. Silver joined me by my side, walking strong. Not me. I have a bad limp from the injuries from that bear. It looks like it's going to stay with me for the rest of my life. Smiling, it didn't matter. It matched my hand. Damaged, but it's still mine. Time went fast while we healed. Winter is nearing. I started to gather, and in a few short weeks I have plenty of nuts and roots stored. It's a daily routine that makes me strong. I follow mine without missing a beat. What needs to be done is done when it's needed, not when I feel like it. I guess I'm learning some lessons in life. Now many winters have come and gone, and for each cold spell that hits my life, it's followed by a spring's thaw. I find I want to live more with each passing hardship, but while in the thickest of the grayest days of my life, many times I believed I was defeated. Laying here under a couple trees, and I'm just thinking, it's amazing for me to look back at how much pain is behind me and walks in the shadows of my memories, and to look ahead, what's ahead of me, life. I thought back to all of the times I gave up in my own heart, becoming bitter at the world as I laid in my own selfish pity. Yes, many times I've been more than beaten, believed I'd end. I stood looking at my surroundings. I'm happy at this point in life. For me, it's the spring. All is going right. I think of the winters to come, knowing they'll come. But from experience, I also know spring isn't far behind. It's a perfect day. The air's crisp and clean. It's not too hot. We stood by the lake. It's great to see another winter's thaw. Silver and I beat this winter easily, both in their prime of our lives. I thought back, it was the coldest winter yet. There were many hardships. But in the end, all the winter's fury filled with its darkest days led me here to another spring. Our best days are ahead of us again. I looked at Silver drinking the water, how his muscles showed gently through his fur. I stretched my arms out and I took a deep breath and I looked up across the lake. The sun's lowering below the clouds, firing all with its glory. Lost in the story that never ends, life, I can feel I am mastering this land. I'm growing with the passing of each season. I walk with experience, not guesses. I am wiser than yesterday because I choose to be. As I soak in this minute of precious life, I am loving every second. That's when I heard a thumping sound. Silver lets out a cry that filled the universe I lived in. I have never heard anything like it, and he collapsed to my feet. When I look down, I see him, and an arrow is stuck through his heart. I swung around and I saw the Indian that I actually let live, and he's aiming an arrow at me. At first, I saw his fingers release the string. The arrow raced at me at a speed which faster than my reaction. Overhead it missed and I yelled, "No, you bastard, no!"
I reached, broken, picking up old Silver's limpless body in my arms. I ran. The trees passed in dazed motions, not sure if this is happening. Holding Silver tight to my chest, his body is pressed to mine. There is no movement from him. As I ran, I thought back to the moment when I looked down the shaft of my arrow. He was mine. I could have killed him. And now he has taken my best friend. At this moment of time, all my fears were cast aside, and I stopped running. It was more anger that stopped me than anything, and I slowed to a walk. I came to a stand. The words that I remember the hardest to swallow. Running bears ring loud many times in my head. A mistake in the future could have been erased in the past. That's it. I've had it. No more running. I laid my breathless friend, old Silver, to the ground. Only true friend I've ever had. I thought back to the choices made not to release the arrow, and I, as Running Bear, the warrior, let out a cry for all the land and heavens to hear. This time I run no more. I will never fucking run again. I took my bow from my back. White-knuckled, I squeezed it in my hands. I turned to face my enemy, and I put on my war-painted heart. I looked at old Silver's lifeless body, and I whispered, "This one's for you." I looked up. There he stood, that Indian. He was disgusting to me. He looked back at me. We were both too far for a shot with our bows. I held mine out, letting him know this time it's to the death. No words were needed. We both understood. As I put my bow to my side, he held his, and this war begins with a simple gesture. This is like no other hunt. This is what I thought to myself. I am the hunter, but yet my prey hunts me. I started to run at him, thinking I will end it right here, right now. I will not turn my back on him ever again, not until I am dead or he lies at my feet as Silver laid breathless at mine. At first, I thought we'd fight right now, at this moment. It was on, and as I ran towards that Indian, he turned to get away from me. I wanted him now, but he flees. I yelled, "No, you turn and fight." Running faster after him, I wanted to keep him in view no matter what. I didn't want to play hide and seek with him anymore. Gasping for a breath, I've chased him into the nightfall. I'm on his tracks, but he's not in sight. I've walked alone many times in my life, but never like this. Every sound is critical, and I made none. I actually see more with my ears. It's a dark night with no moon, and I know he's near. I heard his steps. As soon as he made a noise, the sound stopped. He's either standing still as I, or he's gone. My heart pounded. It was erratic, so that it blocked my breaths. It's like I'm a spider's web, and I know the spider sees me. I listened so intensely the darkness deepened beyond my ability to even know if my eyes were open. Everything is in tune, and all senses are peaked, focused, trying to know my surroundings. I have never been more alive, never felt braver. I'm hunting for revenge. Never believed I'd with no hesitation want to kill a man, but here I stood with a taste for blood. Thirsty, I wanted the dryness I felt inside to end. I thought this should never have happened. I had my chance. I should have taken you out a long time ago. It was my choice to let you live, and now I have to face the consequences of that decision. I will walk on a higher ground because I choose to, not that it isn't earned first. And I thought of Running Bear and everything I have learned from him. Born new into his world, it became mine. Young, I saw the mistakes I've made. I'll choose to walk different. I walk with knowledge, and I have learned from the most important teacher, Father Time. I am here. I am in the dark about my future, knowing my enemy is near. It's as if he's my twin in darkness. My thoughts of my steps and what brought me to here is turned into reality. I'm in the fight of my life again. I thought back to the wolves when they were ripping me apart, the bear. To those points, they were the fights of my life. Here I face a more sinister enemy. He has a brain. He can think for himself, and he is responsible for his actions he chooses. This is not a battle. No, not at all. This is a war. I heard a breaking branch. My heart knew to stop beating for a second. I listened deeply, focusing on the sound that's familiar.
It was getting closer. I thought back to the raccoon when I was laying on my back. It's the same sound. My enemy would not be so careless. And that sound's drowned out by another. Now that's my enemy. He heard the noise. The animal made just like I did. The Indian is trying to sneak off to my left. He's changed directions, and now he seemed to be turning to fight. Still, I made no movements or sounds. I even held my breath. I have an idea of where he is. From the starless dark sky, a glow is cast overhead. I look to its directions. The moon is being born through the trees. I looked to the direction of the sounds where I heard my enemy. Not sure what to do, I took my bow from my back. This is the moment of awakening. It's time for me to face my enemy, to look into his face, to see his identity. As the moon climbed higher from the hollowness of the forest, a figure silhouette appeared in a silvered outline. I could see his bow as drawn as mine. I looked with our arrows. We faced each other in range. I leaned to release my shot, and I am knocked backwards. I fell to the ground. I know what happened, but I can't believe it. His arrow hit my bow. I am laying here not moving, waiting to see if he comes, to see if he killed me. Not sure what else to do. I played dead. I saw him standing. He stood 20 yards away. He is Indian like me, but he brings darkness into my life. Unhappy times, pain, and heartbreak. I wanted to destroy him any way I could. He has his bow in hand. Mine is next to me. I grabbed at it. I stood behind a tree, hiding from his view to get my bearings. My bow is useless. It's broken in two. I will carry it. I didn't want him to know I am without it. It's still dark enough. It will be hard for him to see if it's of no use. If I'm going to take on my enemy, I will have to be smarter. He has an upper hand and is armed better. I ran at him and I decided to end this now. I screamed as I charged. I wanted to see if he hit me with an arrow, and none flew. Instead, he dropped his own bow to the ground, and in this moon's braving light, he started to scream, running back at me. It's the moment of truth. The fight that's before me is here, and I have to face it. Not scared I am ready to die, but more, I want to win. As fast as the moon seemed to rise, it now sets and a new day is born. The night gave birth to a dawning truth of sunlight. The fight went on forever, and it never ended. This is how it felt. During the battle, I rolled him to his back. I took his neck in my clenched hands. I started to strangle the life out of him, to squeeze the last drop of air from his lungs. As I am saying to his face, "Die, you bastard, die!" I choked him with all my fury's vision, and then he cleared to a rage's revenge. I looked into his eyes with hatred to end his life. I wanted to see him die. When my eyes met his, I saw my enemy's face clearly for the first time. That's when I felt what true fear was. I released my chokehold and I stood, shocked. I looked down at him and I screamed, "No! This can't be." I looked to the sky and I yelled with hell in my breath, "No! No! No!" I looked from the heavens back to face the Indian, and I watched as he stood and rose up to face me standing. Shaking my head in disbelief, I asked, "You're my enemy?" I said, "It's you, Running Bear? It's you I battle?" Deep breaths. I paused for a long time, exhausted from the fight I'd been in. Running Bear never looked away from me the entire time, and then he told me words that I will never forget.
As I said, we are twins.
I fell to my knees and I started to cry. Running Bear, my enemy, walked away. I couldn't take my eyes from him. His moccasins and his skins for clothing. I looked at his back while he marched, and I thought the reality is too much. Consumed by my thoughts, but it was clear when I looked back on my life many times, I have been my worst enemy. I walk alone now. Old Silver is not next to me anymore. The truth is hard to swallow, and I kinda ran from it. Silver didn't die from an Indian's arrow. I thought that'd be much better for me. Silver begged me not to walk on the thin ice. He knew better. I didn't listen. Again, something I am guilty of many times in life. When he broke through, Silver slid on the slanting ice and was sucked under by the strong current. It happened so fast, neither had time to react. I never felt weaker in my life. I guess up until now I couldn't accept it. The shock was too much. Now for the first time I have to face myself, and I take the blame for Old Silver's life. I stood in a moment of pain I knew will walk me to my last step. There's no way for me to heal from this. Only had to listen to a good friend and he would still be with me today. Running Bear is with me. He always is. He is me, my best friend, along with my worst enemy. We are twins. That brings me to where I stand today. It's the worst winter of my life by far, and all is frozen. I have been tracking the only tracks I found for weeks, and after days, still nothing. Taking another step, seeing in the distance a buck. His head swung into view, and those massive antlers spread wide. There is something about this deer. He stirs up thoughts of yesterday. It's that deer, the big buck I saw in the water's reflection from my swing. And now we faced each other as predator and prey. He ran off and I followed slowly, but relentlessly I stalked his tracks. It took 2 full days before I saw him again. He knows I'm hunting him. He's in his prime. I'm far past mine. But if I'm going to beat this winter, I'll have to die. I kept the chase on. He'll weaken in time. Even a winter this hard takes the strong if things go wrong. And that is when it happened to my surprise. We met again, that deer and me. This time he faced me and walked in the shooting range. Drawing back my bow, I held the arrow looking at him. He's dead. The string is to my face. My arm started to shake as I held it longer, weakening. He's the largest buck I've ever seen. I lowered the bow and thought, there will be others. I watched as the deer looked away and walked slowly out of sight. The buck took one last look back, like he couldn't understand, and is gone with a couple leaps out of sight. I understood what it is like to be the hunted, and sometimes I am the hunter. But today I am at peace with myself, and I believe so too was that deer. No way he was going to run anymore. I thought about that, and I respected it, and we part friends for today. Throughout my life I have weathered many storms. The suns have followed the moons, the years have passed. I looked into the water and I saw a familiar face. I am old, my hair it shines silver from the sun's rays. I have no teeth, my lips sink in, my skin it hangs wrinkled. Sitting to the ground I cross my arms laying flat to my back. I now know it's my time, I am being called. I am not quitting. As I, Running Bear, died here, I crossed to a brighter light-filled space. With me is Running Bear the Indian. I'm myself, and the old man is here as Old Silver. And here, in the imagination of my mind, they all will always live. And what lives in my imagination also lives in me as memories. When I did open my eyes, I'm amazed, and nothing is as I thought. I'm asleep in my cabin. I looked at the hot coals in the fireplace. They're burning out completely. I walked around lost, and I couldn't believe I'm here, in my cabin. Running Bear, I asked solemnly, are you there? No answer. I walked to the bathroom where I faced myself. I reached my hands to my face, and I touched both sides. I lowered them as the tears fell from my eyes. I am saddened. Running Bear, Old Silver, the Indian. It was all a dream. I went over to the sofa and I sat for a while. What a dream. An Indian that needed a driver. I laughed out loud while this deep, lonely feeling set in. I rose up off the sofa and I walked over to the kitchen where I grabbed a cup of juice. I walked outside and looked across my land as I headed towards the pond. I sat on my wife's swing. I gazed across the pond and I thought of the deer's reflection, not sure what's real anymore. I remembered my wife. I wondered if she was even real. She died so many years ago. I took my wallet and opened it. I looked at her picture. I know she was real. My life and thinking back to all the moments that were special and now gone. There are many smiles, but what is left is the pain. It's not that I'm not happy. I realize sitting here that anything worth remembering brings a selfish hurt. Just to be able to pet your favorite dog, to tell your dying mom you loved her, and to hold her one more time. With this level of appreciation, knowing you'll never be able to touch that person again. That would be special, even amazing. There is much hurt in life, and all is in balance with the memory that is filled with joy. I looked down from the sky across the rolling hills. My eyes saw a movement, and when I look closer, it's a wolf. He's identical to Old Silver. Not moving, I watched as the wolf walked closer to the pond. I didn't think he saw me. He stopped at its edge to drink. He looked into the rippling water, and I gasped for a breath. My chin dropped, and I couldn't take my eyes from the reflection that's painted before me. When I looked toward the wolf, I saw him drinking. When I glanced to his reflection in the water, there I saw the old Indian. I stood from my swing and I walked to the water's edge. I looked down at my own reflection in the still water surface, and I saw I am Running Bear, the Indian. I watched the old Indian's reflection. I know now he is Old Silver. The old Indian had his right hand out, and he placed it across his chest, saying goodbye to me with his eyes. He looked at me with pride, and I understood right away, it's earned. I knew at this point, dream or no dream, for me it was real, and I was never going to see any of them again. I held my hand high and I laid it across my chest, holding back the true tears, but one slipped out, falling, breaking the smooth canvas of the water surface. I watched as Old Silver the wolf turned away. I looked into the water, seeing the old man, and he walked in silver steps. My heart told me he is Big Eagle. I looked down into the water. There I saw me as Running Bear is gone, and my true reflection had taken his place. I made my way back to the cabin. As I did, I felt an uneasy, empty, happy sadness. There I saw a small tree. It is before me. It's my next step on my path of life, and I made sure not to hurt it. After all, I wouldn't want to hurt what feeds me tomorrow, today. Sometimes the lessons in life are learned well. My wife did die in a car accident. That is true. We were going on vacation and we had a 16-hour drive. I couldn't wait to get there. She kept telling me we had a late start. It isn't a big deal if we miss one day at the hotel. She couldn't stay awake and fell asleep next to me. It wasn't until I heard the crashing sound and felt the sudden stop of the car that I realized I'd been in a car accident. She didn't make it. I had been running from the truth ever since. My weekend up the mountains ended and I drove back to the city. I saw things in a different perspective. I had finally accepted what happened all those years back, and maybe life isn't bad after all. This winter seemed to be fading, and I felt spring might not be that far. For the moment, I felt proud of who I am. So big deal, nobody will ever know my name. But I walked, and I survived, whether it was a dream or not, as Running Bear the Indian. And he helped bring back the happiness in my heart that was lost.